being here with us and for your intervention. Doy la palabra ahora.
I now give the floor to His Excellency Mr. Gamini Lakshman Peiris, Minister of Foreign Affairs of Sri Lanka.
Mr. President, Sri Lanka has regularly shared our progress and challenges in an open exchange with this Council and other organs of the United Nations. It is in this spirit of transparency, candor, and openness that I make this address to the current session of the Council. The international community is well aware of the grave social and economic situation that Sri Lanka has been faced with in recent weeks. While this situation has been aggravated by ongoing global crises, including the pandemic, the focus of the protests has consisted of demands for economic relief and institutional reform. In recognition of these challenges and in moving forward in an inclusive manner, we consider it crucial to heed the aspirations of all segments of our people, in particular the country's youth. Mr. President, as a stable foundation for the future, the President and the Prime Minister of Sri Lanka have called for a consensual approach to national issues through a broad-based government. Far-reaching political changes are already taking place with the appointment of a new Prime Minister and of a new multi-party cabinet in my country. We are actively engaged in evolving an all-party consensus regarding the need for the 21st Amendment to Sri Lanka's Constitution to consolidate seminal democratic values enshrined in Parliament, independent institutions, and salutary checks and balances on the powers of the executive. We need to ensure collectively that these reforms take place within the democratic constitutional framework and in keeping with due process. The process of change must not destroy the very democratic institutions that are sought to be strengthened and consolidated. We have consistently emphasized that dissent needs to be peaceful and be expressed within the democratic space. During the recent disturbances, a limited curfew and emergency regulations were imposed for the sole purpose of maintaining law and public order and allowing the unimpeded distribution of essential supplies. At the instance of the Attorney General of the Republic and under direct judicial supervision, fully fledged investigations are proceeding with regard to the incidents of the 9th of May and their aftermath. We also condemn unreservedly the deaths of several persons, including a member of parliament, and extensive damage to property throughout the country. The Human Rights Commission of Sri Lanka as well has initiated independent investigations into these incidents. Mr. President, on the important aspect of the economy, in order to stabilize the situation and provide essentials for our people, we are formulating concrete measures which are expected to lead to an IMF-supported program. In moving forward, we are in dialogue with all stakeholders, including domestic and international partners. We are putting together a coherent structure to place our economy back on a sustainable growth path and to provide for necessities such as food, fertilizer, energy, and medicines. The current situation and future reform measures have a potentially adverse impact on the lives and livelihoods of the vulnerable. In agreement, therefore, with the emphatic remarks by the distinguished High Commissioner Michelle Bachelet earlier this morning, Sri Lanka is firmly committed to targeted social protection measures to mitigate these consequences. We certainly recognize as a core belief that human rights are indivisible, interconnected, and interdependent. Mr. President, over the past years, including at the 49th session in March this year, we have interacted with the Council in addressing a series of issues raised in relation to Sri Lanka. Today, as we seek to redress grievances and issues in a broader social context, it is both compelling and challenging to demonstrate further tangible progress on post-conflict consolidation through democratic and domestic processes. we will continue to do so by active engagement with this Council. Notwithstanding the recent challenges and constraints, I would like to highlight significant progress made by Sri Lanka's domestic mechanisms in some key areas. Since the previous meeting, soon after my pledge to the Human Rights Council that the Prevention of Terrorism Act in my country will be amended, I presented legislation to Parliament to amend the PTA, and this was enacted. The cumulative effect of these amendments will make a substantial improvement of and a profound impact upon the existing law, and will further cause human rights and human freedoms in Sri Lanka to be strengthened. In this regard, the Inspector General of Police has issued instructions whereby there is a de facto moratorium on arrests being made under the PTA. Law enforcement officials have been instructed to follow due process in the conduct of investigations under the PTA and to use this legislation only in instances of extreme necessity. In the fuller version of my speech, I am making available to this Council the progress made by important local mechanisms such as the Office of Missing Persons, the Office for National Unity and Reconciliation, and the SDG 16 Council. Sri Lanka, at the same time, remains open to engaging with the diaspora community and with civil society organizations committed to the well-being of our country. Mr. President, in the past, I have made clear that Sri Lanka rejects the so-called external evidence gathering mechanism introduced by HRC Resolution 46/1, adopted without our consent and that of other members of this Council. We reiterate our conviction that this mechanism will only serve to polarize and divide and will be an unproductive and unhelpful drain on the resources of this Council and its members. In conclusion, therefore, Mr. President, we seek the understanding of this Council regarding the challenging social and economic situation in Sri Lanka. We undertake to engage in the multiple tasks before us and to honor legitimate commitments. Sri Lanka is an active participant in the multilateral framework and has continued its close engagement with the international community and the Human Rights Council to realize the promotion and protection of human rights with justice and equity for our people. The difficult situation we are facing today and the voices of our youth remind us urgently that we need to address these challenges with humility. Our approach then, Mr. President, is to recognize the challenge without being overwhelmed or constricted by it. With a clearly conceived objective, clarity regarding the means to accomplish it, and above all, confidence in the resilience of our people, which has served our nation well in the past, we embark on an intricate journey step by step. We are immensely fortified by the sustained goodwill and support of the international community manifested in abundant measure, and we look forward to continuing open engagement. I thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Your Excellency, and thank you for being here and for your presentation. Esto nos lleva al final.
This brings us to the end of this meeting. We will reconvene at 3 p.m. to continue the interactive dialogue on the High Commissioner's oral update on the state response to pandemics, and to hold the interactive dialogue with the Special Rapporteur on the situation of human rights in Eritrea, followed by the interactive dialogue with the Commission of Inquiry on the occupied Palestinian territory, including East Jerusalem and in Israel. I hereby close the first meeting of the 50th session of the Human Rights Council.